Imagine working hard, saving up, and still not being able to buy a home. Not because you're not trying, but because the system is rigged against you. That's what millions of Californians are facing right now. The gap between renting and owning has grown so wide that for most people, homeownership is no longer a realistic goal. It's becoming a fantasy. Let's start with San Francisco. The average rent for a two-bedroom apartment is now around $4,140. Still expensive, but relatively manageable for working professionals. But if you try to buy a mid-tier home, the typical property costs around $1.3 million. With today's mortgage rates close to 7% and a standard 20% down payment, monthly payments come out to about $7,000 to $7,500 before taxes and insurance. For most working professionals, it's a financial wall they simply can't climb. Now look at San Jose. Renting a two-bedroom apartment will cost you roughly $3,300 a month. Buying a mid-tier home? That'll run you about $1.4 million. With today's interest rates, you're staring down a mortgage of over $7,000 a month. That's more than double the cost of renting. That kind of gap makes the idea of owning a home feel more like a fantasy than a goal. Los Angeles and San Diego show a similar trend. Mortgage payments there are nearly 80 to 90% higher than rent. So even if you're disciplined with your finances, you're still priced out of the market, unless you're bringing in serious income or have generational wealth behind you. The old American dream was simple: rent for a few years, save up, then buy a home and build equity. But in today's California, that ladder is broken. The cost of housing has simply outpaced income growth. The California Legislative Analyst's Office says that mid-tier home prices have risen 82% since 2020. Bottom-tier homes, usually considered more affordable, have gone up nearly 87%. And that's not just a number. That's people's dreams being pushed further away. Even starter homes, if you can call them that anymore, are no longer affordable. In over 100 cities in California, a basic entry-level home costs $1 million or more. Let that sink in. $1 million just to get started. Now combine that with soaring mortgage rates, limited housing supply, and zoning laws that make it nearly impossible to build new, affordable units. It's no wonder that California's homeownership rate has dropped to 55.9%, well below the national average. At its peak in 2006, the state had over 60% homeownership. We've been sliding backward ever since. And here's where it gets even more concerning. If people can't own, they rent. But even renting is unaffordable. In Los Angeles, renters need to make nearly $50 an hour just to afford the average apartment. That's almost 3 times the city's minimum wage. Nearly half of all renters in the state now spend more than 30%, sometimes even 50% of their income, on rent alone. So what's the consequence of all this? It's not just financial, it's generational. According to recent surveys, 70% of Californians believe their children will be worse off financially than they are. People are skipping meals, delaying medical care, and relying on government food assistance just to make ends meet. And it all ties back to housing. Without homeownership, there's no equity, no asset to fall back on, no cushion in retirement. Housing isn't just shelter, it's the foundation of long-term financial security. When you own a home, you're building wealth, you're gaining stability, and one day, when you retire, that home becomes a safety net. But if you're renting for life, you're vulnerable. You're exposed to rising rents, evictions, and financial uncertainty. And when you retire, you'll likely need government support just to survive. Some experts argue that this kind of dependence is dangerous, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole. Because democracy thrives when people are independent, when they own something, when they feel invested in the system. But if more and more people rely on the state or have no financial stake in their community, that can reshape everything, from politics to the economy to social stability. This isn't just a housing crisis, it's a tipping point. The dream of homeownership is fading in California, and with it the very idea of upward mobility. Unless something changes dramatically, we're looking at a future where people are trapped in a cycle of rent with little chance of escape. If you found this video valuable, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear the truth. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the economic forces shaping our lives, because understanding them is the first step toward changing them.